MLB insider Jim Bowden just dropped a bombshell statement as it pertains to one name that could present itself on the pitching market this MLB trade deadline. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the True Mets Talk podcast. It's your boy CP. And in this video, we are continuing our New York Mets trade deadline talks and discussions as the deadline is just weeks away with the second half of baseball starting tomorrow. As always, please do smash those thumbs up buttons on this video. Subscribe to the channel if you are new and if you enjoyed these discussions. And check out all the latest content down in the description down below. We've been talking blockbuster trades potentially for the Mets. We've been talking about bullpen pieces, starting pitching pieces, and now we're talking about another reliever and potentially a starter moving forward. Jim Bowden today, just today, brand new statement, went on the Foul Territory podcast and stated that the Athletics are thinking about making flamethrower, fireballer, Mason Miller, who's only 26 years old right now, available this trade deadline. And this is a revelation at this point because everybody was wondering what the Athletics were going to do this past offseason with their organization kind of in flux, moving cities, having to play in the minor league ballpark for the time being before the move to Las Vegas. And what did they end up doing? They ended up having a really aggressive offseason, going out and signing Luis Severino to a large 3-year contract, extending Brent Rooker and a couple of other pieces, bringing in Jeffrey Springs, and a lot more. And now we are hearing that Mason Miller could be available per Jim Bowden and that teams are inquiring about Mason Miller because they want to make him a starting pitcher, which just adds onto the trend in baseball of these high-end relievers moving to become starting pitchers in their careers. We've seen it with Seth Lugo, former New York Met, going to start for the Kansas City Royals, having success. Of course, the New York Mets, and this is where it ties into the New York Mets because we just saw them do this offseason with Clay Holmes signing a 3-year deal, moving across boroughs to be a starting pitcher for the New York Mets. And I know that he hasn't provided the Mets much length in the first half, but he's pitching to a 3.30 ERA. And I think all in all, it's been a successful first half for Clay Holmes. We'll see what he has in store for the second half. But we know the Mets organization, David Stearns, and this analytics department, the pitching lab, they love these kinds of projects. And this screams New York Mets to me right here with what Jim Bowden is saying. Now, there's going to be a plethora of teams in on a potential blockbuster trade like this for Mason Miller. Make no mistake about it. And we'll get into the reasons why. But I think the primary reason is because he's only 26 years old. He came onto the scene in an A's uniform a couple of years ago. He had an all-star season in his second season in the big leagues. Oh, and by the way, he's averaging 101 miles per hour on his fastball this season, even given some of the elevated numbers. So let's take a look at those numbers. Look at that Savant page. Look at that Savant page. That is a thing of beauty when you're talking about a guy that can put hitters away at an elite clip. And that is presented in his strikeout rate right to my left in those numbers. Look at the strikeout rate. 41.8% last season. Again, he was an all-star in 2024 and 40.1% this season, even given some of the elevated numbers in the ERA and the walk rate. Now, the walks do need to be a little bit more toned down for Mason Miller. He's up to 12% this year, and he was right around league average last year at 8.4%, which presented more respectable numbers overall. And the walks and hits per innings pitched last season, over 65 innings total, were just ridiculous from Mason Miller. A little bit of a taste of what he could be consistently moving forward. But the reason, probably, I could assume why teams want him to become a starting pitcher is that he's already got two elite pitches. His four-seam fastball that he throws for over 50% of the time, and the slider in which he uses to generate that chase rate, right? That whiff rate and that strikeout rate. But he has a changeup that he throws, and he's thrown it only 1.4% of the time in his first little over 35 innings pitched in 2025, and it's been absolutely hammered, and he's gone away from it. And last year, he kind of messed around a little bit with a split finger fastball, which could be a fourth pitch for him to utilize if the experimentation of him moving to a starting rotation, whoever ends up dealing for him, if the Athletics decide to let him go. Let's not get ahead of ourselves too much here. The A's just still have to make that conscious decision whether to keep him in the organization or not. But he's got that potential to develop two more pitches alongside the four-seam fastball and the slider, which makes him such an intriguing piece that we are all at this point waiting to see if he's going to be dealt or not. And if he is on the trade block, I just released a video, by the way, earlier today. This is the second video of the day on the channel. So again, make sure to subscribe, giving you all content and the latest news and rumors and talking about it all on this channel. But we talked about Ryan Helsley, and it's a complete 180. Both fireballers, both can dial it up 100 plus miles per hour with the fastball. Both have a nice slider, but one's older than the other. One's going to be a rental in Ryan Helsley, being a free agent at the end of the season, and Mason Miller is young and controllable. He's not going to be an unrestricted free agent until the 2030 season. Let's think about that real quick. He's in his arbitration year, not only this season, but in 2026, 2027, 2028, and 2029. That is 4 arbitration years and 4 years of control left on Mason Miller's contract. Now, that also, unfortunately, just the gut feeling that I have is going to be the reason why the Athletics keep him around this deadline. But if they're already having these discussions, you could see him getting dealt in the offseason for a larger package. I'm not sure if the Athletics front office want to rush this, and they have to be very deliberate of how they go about doing this, because whoever ends up with Mason Miller is going to have to give up a haul. And I'm scared to even put up a trade package proposal for Mason Miller right now, so I'm just not going to do it. But rest assured, if the Mets are truly in on Mason Miller this deadline, and if they are trying to field an offer for him to the Athletics, two organizations, the Mets and the A's, who have an extensive history of dealing with one another, you're looking at 100% a couple of top 10 prospects, a couple of top 5 prospects. Let me be very clear about that. And some of those top 5 prospects are going to be one of the 3 pitchers that are seemingly untouchable at this moment between Brandon Sproat, Nolan McLean, and Joe Natong. So this is a tricky one to figure out, not only from the A's perspective, but they have the upper hand by and large. I think everybody knows that. But just these numbers and just the potential of Mason Miller, because he's a guy that you don't have to immediately make him a starting pitcher. You have 4 years to do that. He can still be a high leverage bullpen arm for you alongside Edwin Diaz, hypothetically, in the Mets bullpen. But with the Mets pitching lab and what they've been able to do with a lot of these pitchers, Sean Manaea, Luis Severino when he was in the organization, Clay Holmes so far, it would be an interesting quote unquote project to take on in terms of the starting pitching front. And you'll always have that assurance that you can just put him back in the bullpen if things don't work out. So let me know, Mets fans, what do you think about this recent statement from Jim Bowden, this report about the A's potentially listening on offers for Mason Miller this deadline? Would you like to see David Stearns in the Mets front office go through with a package potentially this deadline? And this is the thing, is that I know a lot of Mets fans are kind of skeptical about David Stearns going and producing a blockbuster move this deadline, and I understand the skepticism, but he has proven time and time again that he is willing to give up the right price for guys that have controllability, especially 4 years worth. And this is not just stopping at the Mason Miller discussion. You can say from the offensive perspective, same thing with Jarren Duran. So I'm very curious how this plays itself out from the Mets' perspective this deadline. or whether they're just going to wait to see if they can make a blockbuster move in this offseason. For those of you all who've been following this channel, you all know that it's time to invest in this team right now, but do you do so by going for rentals and not having to give up so much and saving some of your prospects, the large majority of your prospects, for this offseason? Let me know what you think in the comments. Again, if you want to continue to join these discussions, make sure to subscribe to this channel right here on the True Mets Talk podcast. Hit those thumbs up buttons, and we'll see you all on the next streamer video. Peace.